Figure 5.
Here, you forgot one.
Oh, thanks, Stan. So first, religion. Religion has throughout the ages brought numerous people together through common ideals, communities of faith, or because the current empire they are living in had a convert or die policy. Before we get into the huge religious empires that developed in Africa or Europe, or the brutality of the Catholic Church, let's talk about a nice piece of Confucianism happening in the Han Dynasty. The emperors of the Han Dynasty, like the emperors of the Qin Dynasty, ruled with the Mandate of Heaven. The Mandate of Heaven showed God's support only for just leaders. It allowed people to have confidence and loyalty toward their leader, allowing them to work as unified force. This concept of the Mandate of Heaven shows how humans interacted with ideas by showing the greatest of faith people had in one God. They gave loyalty to these rulers because they believed religion was the only thing they could turn to. The Han supported Confucianism, which was less like a religion and more like a moral code. What Confucianism really did was give each person a purpose and tell them how to act in that role, making everyone do what is fair, and if followed precisely, would eventually lead to the highest functioning society. About that same time, one of the most famous emperors of India was Ashoka. Ashoka was a fearless military leader, and a very successful one at that. According to legend, during a particularly bloody battle on one of his campaigns, Ashoka won, but upon witnessing such brutality, swore a life of non-violence and took up Buddhism. And non-violence is on the list of things we like here at Crash Course. Mr. Green, what about almonds? Alright, annoying weed from the past, along with almonds. So through peaceful interaction and endorsing but not enforcing Buddhism, Ashoka instigated one of the golden ages of India, a highly enlightened time of peace during which people focused on learning and education. Also in India, the Gupta Empire was a distinct example in which support of multiple religions brought the support of many people. This empire's main religion was Hinduism, but it also supported Buddhism and Jainism. The religious tolerance offered a more open outlook, thus attracting more people. Islam is an intriguing example, in the fact that it was both a religion and an empire. Muhammad himself was never an emperor, but within 5 years of his death, his followers had constructed a massive military empire. Islam controlled most aspects of one's daily life, and having the power of both a religion and the government was very influential. Under the power of Islam, many people were conquered and made part of the Islamic Empire. Once under Islamic rule, people had the choice between converting to Muslim faith or paying heavy taxes and sometimes even persecution, thus the convert or die policy. Though this was a harsh rule, it brought success to the emperor and was a way of spreading ideas through aspects of everyday life. Another example can be seen in the revival of art and literature during the Renaissance. During this time, people were brought together from all over Europe and Asia to the universities in Europe to study subjects like religion and philosophy. Though only a small percentage of people were able to attend these universities, the advancements in government, laws, and jobs came from these studies affected all people, connecting them further. The explosions of arts during this time also brought many people together. For example, when Brunelleschi's dome was being built, it attracted many people because they all wanted to witness this monumental architectural feat. Camera 2 side note. There is some controversy about whether the Renaissance was actually a thing. For purposes of this video, I will accept the traditional concept of the Renaissance, but if you want to hear more about the controversy, check out the link in the description below. One of the most impressive religious communities developed today is Christendom. Thousands of people across borders who have otherwise had nothing in common with one another are taking orders from the same person and worshipping the same God in the same way. Religion was a key factor in linking all these people in different areas and locations together. Christendom is an example of both humans and ideas and humans and humans. It shows that ideas and beliefs were shared amongst those in different empires, as well as people were able to put aside their empire and consider themselves Christian before, say, French. In fact, at this time, it was common for people's loyalty to go to the Pope before their political leader.
And now, over to Thought Bubble. In 1517, Martin Luther hung a list of 95 theses, complaints against the Catholic Church, on the door of a Catholic church. These complaints included the selling of indulgences and the clergy's position regarding individual salvation. As you can imagine, the clergy were not happy about this. Unfortunately for them, news of Martin Luther's theses quickly spread. They got people talking about the corruption of the Catholic Church, and people got angry. Martin Luther's theses were printed and soon spread all over Europe. The Pope at the time, Leo X, retaliated by excommunicating Martin Luther and declaring him an outlaw in the Edict of Worms. But Luther had already sparked the Protestant Reformation.
The only reason the Crusades were able to happen was that the Christian world was willing to work together. While the Crusades didn't necessarily bring people together, they do demonstrate the power Christendom had to unite people of Christendom to one cause. In addition, to the Crusades, other missionaries of various religions contributed to the interconnectedness of the world. In addition to spreading religions to various people, missionaries provided a form of cultural exchange. By promoting your religion and faith in different areas, you were able to spread your culture and beliefs, as well as bring back the different customs and ideas of various cultures. This cultural exchange brings new ideas and thought processes, which all lead to new innovations and advancements, results of global connectedness.
John, it's supposed to be a full moon out and the moon's coming out. Don't you think you should maybe leave now?
Aw, Sam, just when I was getting to the good part. Sorry guys, I'm gonna have to leave because of some, personal problems. It's totally not because I'm a werewolf or anything. But it's okay because my twin brother John is going to take my place. As you can imagine, with his name also being John, it caused some confusion growing up.
Hi, I'm John Green, and my sister's definitely not a werewolf. It's definitely not a werewolf approaching me, which also happens to be my sister. Now, on to the actual topic of the video. Now on to economic networks and exchange, where nets work economically. Didn't sound as good as it did in my head. Trade has been a big part of civilization since the first hominids traded lunches, but we're not going to talk about that today. Instead, we're going to talk about the meeting of two continents. Constantinople was a culturally diverse trade center located on the Bosporus Strait right between Asia and Europe in modern-day Turkey. Constantinople was the capital of the Byzantine Empire. Many ships came from all around Afro-Eurasia through the Bosporus Strait, making it a huge and important, prominent trade center of the era, which is why the Ottomans came in later to capture it for themselves and turn it into Istanbul when Constantine toppled. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Meanwhile, in Western Europe, there arose a new economic system that helped them shape the view that we have today of the knight in shining armor. Feudalism was a system by which lords or nobles handed off land to vassals, often knights, in exchange for total loyalty, defense in battle, or a donation of money a lot of times. Eventually, though, the lords couldn't demand too much time of their vassals, so that left them with the manner of managing their own homes, which leads us to the manner of manors in quite a simple manner. The manorial system was not so very complicated in that there was the lord of the manor and the people who weren't the lord of the manor. Often a vassal himself, the knight was far too busy with his feudal duties to farm his own land. The same feudal duties that no one actually followed. The serfs were locked to the land by the lord, and the peasants who could afford it just paid rent. So, actually, the knight in shining armor was probably more likely taking a Scrooge McDuck dive in his wealth. He probably wasn't going off to find forbidden skull, death, wizard, dragon, robot treasures. I don't know what fairy tales you heard, but mine had a lot of lasers. As these people amassed on the property, soon more specialized individuals came, ultimately turning the manor into its own self-sufficient economic unit, complete with its own barber, baker, and candlestick maker. Of course, the barber had his own bone saw at the time because they were all barber surgeons back then. Oh, Middle Ages, when will you ever cease to make us wonder how anyone lived to adulthood? These manors were also self-sufficient that they had their own priests, another necessity of the time, which coincidentally leads us on to the topic of Christendom. But Mr. Green, isn't that a broad topic that takes us on a tangent? Right. Christendom is a really broad topic, but it's important to mention because it really embodies the idea of religious linkage during this era. But first, we're going to go to the open letter. What's in the secret compartment today? Oh look, it's an angry Korean. What's that? It seems that people have been disgraced. You see, according to history, Johannes Gutenberg, you invented the printing press, but actually the Koreans thought of it first. But regardless, we know the whole world revolves around Europe, so your invention's more important. The invention of the printing press fueled a huge exchange of ideas all across Europe, from news to literature to translations of holy works and languages, which helped to lead to connecting the world in a whole new way that led to what we know today. It was the internet of the time, but with less cheeseburgers and cats. So, I guess you lost out, Korean. Best wishes, John Green. So, bringing us back to the idea of Christendom, the whole idea of a commonality through religion helped speed up trade and make it faster and safer all across Europe. which kind of leads us to some kind of messed up culmination with the expertly planned and completely rational Crusades. Yes, I'm being sarcastic. I don't want to talk about the Crusades, it's too depressing! Well, as Batman says, I'm the teacher America needs, but not the one it deserves right now. Or something like that, I don't need another lawsuit. So when the Crusades rolled around, the Europeans happened to come in contact with their Muslim neighbors, who actually happened to be going through a golden age at the time, complete with arts, sciences, mathematics, literature, and the Starship Enterprise. Unfortunately, one of those isn't true. The Christians felt they had to capture the Holy Sepulchre because Jesus wouldn't like Stan!
You're welcome.
Anyway, the Christians had to capture the Holy Sepulchre because Jesus would not be resurrected if Jerusalem was not under their jurisdiction. So they went on increasingly weaker and weaker 9 crusades that really left Europe completely weaker than it was before and didn't do much for trade. But at a point, they held Jerusalem, which was protected by sand, hill, dunes, and water, which made it a strategic point for trade. But they lost it anyway. As I mentioned before, the Muslims were going through a golden age, and the things that the troops brought back with them helped pull Europe out of the Middle Ages and into what we'll pretend for the time being existed, the Renaissance, the first major example of which were the Italian city-states. Before we jump into Italian city-states, I'd like to remind all of you that everything does have a flip side, ergo so does trade. You see, as all these ships were bouncing around the Mediterranean, they were carrying on them passengers, and the passengers also carried with them rats, which carried fleas, which carried Black Death! But at least this shows us how efficient the trade was because they were going around so fast and so quickly that Black Death spread so rapidly all throughout Europe, and even parts of North Africa and other places, which reminds us to always look on the bright side of life. But we don't do musical numbers here at Crash Course, do we? Do get back to the point, of course, which is Italy. There arose great Italian city-states such as Milan, Venice, and Florence, which, due to their great shipbuilding skills, were able to trade all over the Mediterranean, and they managed to gain knowledge from translated Roman and Greek works, as well as from their neighbors, and massive wealth from all of their trade ventures, which eventually led to the inventions and creation of ideas that not only changed Europe for the era and economically, but entirely for the rest of history. Mr. Green, I want to learn about pirates! So do I, because pirates are very high on the list of things that we shouldn't like, but really do here at Crash Course. Let's remember that pirates are the bad guys here, which is why a group of northern German city-states banded together to create the Hanseatic League, which was built to protect and keep trade faster, safer, and promoted throughout Europe, Russia, and the Baltic. Because, really, a bunch of cutlass-wielding men named for their beards aren't too good for the topic at hand. But because there was all this promotion of trade by the Hanseatic League in the Italian city-states, there was a need for merchants to be able to sell their goods, which led us to the creation of the trade fair. People came from far and wide, as goods such as silk, spices, and exotic animals were sold, and there was such a rarity of the items that it was just a fantastic place where it raised in a weighty sum, which is a large load of booty. Oh, we're done with the pirate thing. This is awkward. But isn't it amazing that whether it's war, pirates, or giant sea monsters, trade has always thrived? I'm John Green. Thanks for watching. Crash Course is written, directed, and produced by Fareed El Ghafi, Jack Kim, Hassan El Gamal, Kashfi Patel, Cassandra Featon, and Samuel Sheket.